don't know if any of y'all have ever read the book Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington. Basically, is it just speaks about the experimentation on Black people within this country and how we were guinea pigs. You know what I'm saying? No anesthesia, like especially with the OBGYN stuff. Like
It's horrible.
it's evil, it's wicked. I don't even know words to say about the stuff that they have done to us, within this country. But one thing I can say is with that Medical Apartheid book and the experimentation with the Tuskegee experiment and all this other stuff that, people started to quote once the COVID vaccines came out, that was the first thing that they went to. They're experimenting on us, and they really didn't do the back work to see, oh, the vaccine has actually been out for years, but they didn't start the trials until the pandemic started. And that's why it was so soon that the vaccine was released. But one thing that Dr. Kennedy and Dr. Kennedy did, they hosted a Zoom for the family, and they broke down the vaccines and who should get the vaccine, who shouldn't get the vaccine. And now that we're in almost 3 years into this pandemic, and they're talking about we need a fourth shot, do you still feel the same way that you did when you first did that Zoom?
Yes and no, because I think it depends on who you're talking about should get the fourth booster. So what's been clear is that once people have gotten their first boosters, that the benefit, meaning the protection that the vaccine was offering, in a long way is good up to 6 months. And then the antibody response that the body has starts to wane. It's not as effective as it was when you first got it. But what they're not sort of paying attention to is that the new variant strains that we're dealing with now, or the one right now, is the combination Delta and Omicron. It is as contagious as the original ones have been. The originals, they're just not as deadly. And again, the one thing that has not changed in America and most of Europe is that the people who are vaccinated, if and when they get exposed to COVID, are going to fare much better than those who haven't. That hasn't changed at all. I'd say anybody over 60 who has any immune compromise should get the booster. And also, if you're gonna be traveling to other parts of the world where you don't in other words, if you were going to India, I tell you, get the booster before you go. And you don't need to worry about China, because China's not letting anybody into their country, and they're not letting anybody out either. They've just completely locked down the country. So I think that the vaccines, and I always say that the vaccines are not made to cure anybody. All they're really there to do is to stimulate your own immune system, to make cells to protect you in the event you see the virus. Because I still say the one thing that has not changed, when this virus is really effective, it's an ugly infection, death. It really is. And I haven't seen anything that aggressive since the first cases of AIDS in the 1980s.
Wow.
So it's not, and again, it's sad that the world is in this where each country wants to do its own thing, when this truly is a public health issue for the planet. We're lucky. Now, that being said, it's like any other organism that has been around long enough. The longer it's around and it doesn't kill people, the more people's immune systems will be able to fight it off naturally. So we may not need all these boosters. It's too early to tell. And this virus has lasted longer because we didn't approach it as one nation. And like most countries
it was all individualized
It
because
was
everybody wants to have
politics.
their rights.
Say that one more time for the people in the back.
It was, we didn't, the country's been divided long before COVID, but it just got accentuated right at that time. And when the dust clears, there's close to 1 million people who have died, many of whom unnecessarily. And that's an underestimation of the true number of deaths. Just like
so you don't think that they were trying to juke the numbers and it was all a facade and it was for an agenda to kill and take out a specific set of people?
No, because if that's the okay, if it was put in to take care of a particular set of people, it failed because it basically, the organism has not discriminated. This organism has been, without question, an equal opportunity infector across the planet. And I always say, when nowhere on the planet has not been touched, you can't say that this is, now, it's not gonna, and like anything else, we have plenty of people who get COVID who never have any symptoms. They say 10, 15% of people who won't have any symptoms. The problem is they may infect people they actually care about unknowingly, and they may not be able to handle it. Mm-hmm. And that's what we don't know.
So what is the statistics for babies and COVID? Is there enough data? Not even like Winky's age, like younger.
So, so far, statistically, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but what I would say is children in general have been able to weather COVID much better than the adults, except for the children who have underlying health problems. So the kids who have asthma, the kids who have cystic fibrosis, the kids who have inflammatory or irritable bowel, the kids who have heart issues, they're the ones who, when they get infected, their immune system, and I always say that the way to look at COVID is a little bit different than any other infection we have, in that it turns on our immune system in a way we've never seen before. It turns it on into an overdrive state. And so I always say that the best way to think of it is, think of a person who has allergies to something, to the pollen, to particular food or something like that. An allergy is, in essence, is that your body sees that particular chemical and says it doesn't belong here, and it turns on cells that go in overdrive to try to protect you, except for the fact that it gives you symptoms. So it gives you watery eyes and itchy nose and runny nose and scratchy throat. Well, COVID does similar things. It turns on a particular part of our immune system called the cytokines. And what it does is it makes it, and it's why it's such a horrible death, because it makes the person clot everywhere. And when you cut off circulation to anything, it's going to die. And that's what it does. And it's hard because initially we thought you can't give people blood thinners because we thought they would bleed out. Mm-hmm. When they found out the ones who were really having these aggressive infections, it wasn't that they were bleeding out, it's that their circulation was being cut off to their brain, to their heart, to their liver, to their kidneys, to their skin, to their eyes, etc. The world's never seen anything like it. And we won't really learn, at least I believe, we won't really learn everything we need to know about COVID for another 5 years. Because it's going to take that long for us to look back and see what really happened.
So do you see it? Do you see us staying on this?
No,
now it's like
I actually see it going down. I think it's
Lord,
because I think what's happened is the organism has gone through the world 3 or 4 times, and it doesn't have enough. It doesn't have enough people to infect. And when it doesn't, and when an organism doesn't have enough people to infect, it dies out. And that's what happened in the 1918 flu pandemic. Except it took 4 years for that to happen. And
we didn't have anywhere near the technology and the studies that we have now.
Oh yeah. The issue is the world's known about COVID since 2002. Well, not COVID, coronavirus. COVID just happens to be one of them. But they've known about it. That's why it was really easy for them to make vaccines, because they'd already had 12 to 20 years of failure in trying to make them.
Can you please say that again? Because people, they still are saying, no, do your research, fam. They just, it's a plot of the government.
But the problem is I understand they think America is all powerful and all this, but you cannot explain away the fact that first and foremost, and I always tell people, do you know how many vaccines are in the world? How many different vaccines are in the world? Last time I checked, there were 8. So the US is only using 3. And other parts of the world are using 2 or 3. So we know that, and all around the world, because coronavirus attacked the world in 2002, and then again in 2007, and then again in 2009.
And people definitely don't know that.
Oh, it was not a secret. Oh, I don't know where this came from. This was very different. And so what ends up happening, and I always say, look, we have microbiologists and virologists who literally, their entire careers is to make a vaccine. That's all they do. Every day, day in and day out. We got places they can't give names to all over the country where they're
like Area 51.
Oh yeah, it's real.
Really?
It's real.
Can you drive by and send me your location from your phone?
You said really like you
I'll go on my hunt.
It would be really hard to get there.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So those actually exist, like in Independence Day when they had the, you know what I'm saying, when they had the alien downstairs and the spaceship.
Yeah. There are a lot of people who believe that there's been life beside us on this planet for a long time. You know.
Yeah, I mean, look at Trump.
Wow.
McConnell? No, Mitch McConnell. Yeah, McConnell. He's definitely not of this world.
Ted Cruz.
Yeah. No, we got a lot of different
Yeah.
alien life forms.
The list goes on and on. The list goes on and on. But we got a new Supreme Court justice, so.
And she's from your area.
She's a bad woman. Oh yeah, she's a bad woman.
So how do you feel about her?
She's the right choice. She's brilliant. She's fair. And
Do you
I
know
actually,
her husband?
yeah,
I knew it. I knew it. Set up a tea date. It will, set up a tea date when we come down for the graduation. Okay.
yeah, he's a great surgeon.
Really?
Yeah, he's a
So he's a good guy. He's one of the good guys.
he's a great surgeon. He really is.
So what's his discipline?
He's a gastrointestinal surgeon. I'm almost sure he's
I need a gastro surgeon.
His price going up.
Yesterday's price is not today's price.
So you should have called him about a week ago.
See, I didn't know. I didn't know all of this. You kept this information from me.
His price.
We didn't know. No,
This is wonderful. This is wonderful news.
No, I always say we're living in very interesting times.
Yes.
It is. We have clearly seen the very worst of humanity, and at times seen the very best during this time.
Yeah.
Without question.
The other pandemic that has been going on that really nobody has stopped talking about since it happened is the Will Smith Chris Rock pimp slap on the Oscar stage, right? So Noe and I were talking yesterday, and there's a lot of people that are now diagnosing Will with mental health issues because of how he
behaved.
He lost it.
So the first thing I tell you is, unless you know Will Smith and have sat and talked with him, you have no idea. He could have had an out-of-body experience at that moment in time. Doesn't make what he did right or anything like that. But as always, what people are reacting to is the incident. And there are very few incidents that happened. Actually, I was reading a study this morning. Where did it say this? I gotta read this. That basically said something. Oh, here it is. So this was talking about stigmas in mental health. And so what happened with Will Smith kind of applies. So stigmas exist toward mental health, especially for African-American men. When a violent crime occurs or a violent act occurs, the media portrays it as a mental health problem if they're a person of color. And I always say, take the same incident that just happened and imagine it being two white guys. Mm-hmm. And guarantee you they would have played it off from the very beginning as a joke. And that they were just fooling and playing and blah, blah, blah. And it was no big deal. And then if you take and make one of them white and one of them black, and let's say Will Smith went and hit a white dude in that, be totally different. He might have gotten arrested that day.
I agree.
So I think that, we don't know what, we only know what they allow us to hear and see as it relates to them. We don't know the relationship that Will Smith had with Chris Rock. We don't know what was going on between him and his wife. and what she's going, because I actually think it's not a big deal about what she, the condition she has. I mean, I don't think it is, but maybe she did. And so,
because I have it, mommy has it, like
yeah, a lot of
so
people,
many of us have it.
yes, it's actually a very common condition, which
Especially
tells
in
you
us.
that it implies that there's more. I would say, to me, it's more to the story than what we just saw.
That's what I'm saying, because something is not right.
No, well, there's more to the story.
Yeah,
We
he had a
don't.
Jimmy Got Soul moment. That's it. That's it. That's it.
It's possible.
Moment.
We don't know. We don't know. And I think part of it is first of all, it's over and we should move on, because we have no idea how this has affected him or will affect him.
Mm-hmm.
And,
the after effects for both of them.
Yeah, you can't destroy their careers over this, because they've already made their mark, other than the fact that most celebrities love being in the limelight because they do what they do. But,
they banned him from the Oscars for the next 10 years. That was his punishment.
That's just childish. It's just childish. And again, what does that mean? That he can't show up at the affair, but he can still direct and he can still act. And so does that mean now you're going to shut him out if he gives a performance? Because, while we're all talking about this, he actually did win an Oscar. He actually really did do a good job in his performance playing the Williams sisters' dad. But nobody, it's almost like none of that
happened. No.
None of that happened.
It was just the slap and then the post sit and the cuss out and then the getting jiggy with it after party. That's all.
Right. And I always say we have more important things to do than to worry about him, Chris Rock, and her.
And he's still eligible to win an Oscar if he can still be nominated and win the award.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
He just can't go. Maybe they'll mail it or somebody sits in as proxy.
Right. He'd become the new Denzel.
Nobody could become Denzel.
Okay.
Denzel is Denzel.
Well, in your world.
No.
I don't know if it's as much a question as it is as a possible request. So for all the people who may see this and may not know, exactly how to go about, let's just say, taking care of themselves the way they need to, if you could give like a quick rundown on like your self-care 101 just for like a year, like what are the things you should do in a year, like just naturally, just with upkeep, like you should get a physical, you should see your optometrist, or you should go here, like what would you say, do these things, and then obviously when you feel a certain way, go see a doctor, a specialist, whatever, like how would you break down a year's worth of self-care?
That is a great question.
Great question.
Phenomenal.
So I would say you start out by first trying to develop a relationship with a doctor. And with it, well, let's assume you're someone who's already been in the healthcare system versus someone who's never been. The person who's never been, you need a relationship. The person who's already been, there's some basic things. No matter what the health condition a person might have is, the two things that are the staples of any healthy behavior is lifestyle. One, exercise. And exercise can be anything. It can be walking, it could be running, it could be walking up and down stairs, it could be stretching, it could be swimming, biking, rollerblading, whatever you want to call it. all of weightlifting, all of that. Second, what you eat. What you put in you has a lot to do with how well your health is. So part of it ends up being the healthiest diet on the planet happens to be in my view, the Mediterranean diet. But there are people who believe that the best diet is a plant-based diet, which means you eat vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, legumes, and occasionally fish on the side, and less red meat. Those things. And I'm a 110% advocate for water. That most people should be drinking half their body weight in ounces of water a day. The human body typically is 70% water by weight. But only people who use their bodies as their business, so athletes and dancers and entertainers, are the ones who are more likely to stay hydrated. Most
I
of us,
actually went to the doctor a few months ago, a new doctor, and I told her how much water I drank, and she told me I drink too much water.
did she say why? She said, why did she tell you why she thought you drank too much water?
Well, you know, I'm always going to the bathroom. I wake up 3-4 times a night going to the bathroom, but she was just like, your intake is too much. You need to cut back on water.
Well, but if she was using the fact that you get up 3-4 times a night, the first thing I would always ask is, when's the latest you drink before you go to bed, and how much?
Well, I keep water next to the bed so I can drink throughout the night.
Well, that explains why you get up 3-4 times a night.
I've had a weak bladder since I was a kid. Ain't nothing changed, but
So
never heard
why
that.
don't you do a live-in experiment, and whatever time you go to bed, 2 hours before will be the last time you drink any fluid, and see what happens. Because if you don't get up at night after that, you know that it was the amount of intake that you put in, and you by default, because I don't think, it doesn't sound like you get up because you gotta pee, you get up because you're used to drinking. That's what it sounds like.
Both.
Yeah. So I would tell you that's a habit. So any habit can be adjusted.
I could see that.
Yeah, any habit could be adjusted, because the other side of it is, if you're getting up 3-4 times a night, it means that your normal sleep and wake time is disrupted. And so therefore, there'll be times in the middle of the next day where you need the cat nap.
My old timers nap. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So part of it is just adjusting your intake. Healthy eating, active. The recommendation now is 150 minutes a week of some form of activity that makes you huff and puff a little bit is good. Meditation, prayer, yoga, whatever it is that fits within your world, will be helpful. I think prayer and meditation are different things, but on the same plane. So part of it, you just need to find what works for you. And what works for person A doesn't necessarily work for person B. And diets, I hate the word diet, because the problem with diet means that you're always changing, and you're not. It should be you're eating a balanced meal pattern for yourself, because you could also do intermittent fasting and get the same result. And you could say, okay, you know what, I'm going to fast 12 hours every day, or I'm going to fast Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday and eat regularly the other times of the week. They all work. It's just a matter of the person adjusting to it. And always when you're changing your diet, if people live in the house with you, whatever you eat, they got to eat it, vice versa. Kind of hard to have one person steak and potatoes and the other one eating celery and carrots.
Don't you say a word, Chris. Don't you say one word. You hush your mouth and let the doctor speak. He is speaking.
I ain't saying no.
But I appreciate the fact that you obviously have studied medicine, but you also do alternative methods as well. Like you do a lot of healthy or nutritional stuff that's not necessarily from a pharmacy. Like you believe in.
And we have a program in our office where we teach people how to eat better using a plant-based diet. We have a chef. It's like an 8-week program. And we have now it's all virtual, but it used to be in person where you teach them how to make the food so that you can, because you can make plant-based stuff actually quite tasty using the right herbs and things like that. You can seasonings, you can do a really good job. And clearly many people have proven that you can reverse diabetes. Matter of fact, the mayor up there, he's reversed diabetes by going almost plant-based. He loves fish, but pretty much he's plant-based. He's off.
Talk about Eric Adams, right?
Oh yeah. And matter of fact, some of his diets are actually really tasty. So it's what, and I always say that, biblically, if you read the Bible, there are people who have been vegetarians their whole life, but you also have people who eat lamb and eat goat and have lived long years too. So everything is about balance. There's the extremes of everything. There's no question that in America, the portion sizes in general are way too big and always have been. But we're in America. Bigger is better here,
Yeah.
And it's why we have the obesity epidemic.
Every time I see that on my chart, I be wanting to punch the.
But
get on my chart. I swear.
But by default, the way they measure, because they use the BMI, which is a measure of your height and weight in meters squared, by default, it makes a good percentage of people in this country obese.
Yeah, and because I was obese, like literally 20 years ago, they were calling me obese.
Yeah.
And I was like this big. And I'm just like, how am I obese?
No, the true way, the best way to do it, except it's harder to do, is body composition, where you actually measure the percentage of fat in the body. But it takes a little more effort than having a person just step on a scale. So, because every NFL player, every college football, high school football player, every gymnast, all of them are by definition, many of them are what we would call morbidly obese.
Mm-hmm.
But they have like less than 7% body fat compared to others. So it's not, that's why it doesn't apply. And again, the healthiest population on the planet is Japan.
I remember you told me that.
They live longer. They do a lot of meditation, or I eat Tai Chi and yoga. They walk everywhere. They eat small meals, no matter what. And they eat fish. They eat a lot of fish, but they also eat a lot of meat too. But they eat small portions.
Unc, we want to thank you for your presence on this episode.
My
Just
pleasure.
real quick, from a medical standpoint, how important do you think your weenus is to the human body? Is that an important body?
It's amazingly important.
See, told you. Hey.
The weenus is important.
Ooh.
I don't know.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, that was just.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
Alrighty.
It was like the
You'll
bottom
get
three
it.
squares was the only one that got that one.
You'll get it on the playback.
Yeah, word.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Richard Kennedy
My pleasure. My
of
pleasure.
the Kennedy tribe.
Thank you for having me.
We gotta have like a
I
health
hope it
check-in.
was helpful.
Yeah, we got it. We need to have like a health check-in like every few episodes.
Be my job to be of help, for sure. Look forward to meeting your wife one of these days, Noe, as well, and the rest of the family.
Definitely.
All right, love you. Thank you
Love you.
to Dr. Kennedy on Up for Debate, guys. See you later.
Yeah.
The Melanin Movement is available on your podcast platforms, so check us out today.